Welcome to Wounds to Scars podcast, a weekly conversation about mental health, self-help, and the Christian community. We ask questions such as, can my faith heal me? Or do I need to add works to my faith, i.e. see a counselor, attend a group, or generally get help? I am your host, Joanna Daniel, a counselor that lives in Wales, UK. For more information, visit our website at woundstoscars.com. While I hope you'll enjoy our weekly conversation, the information and advice received in this podcast should not be substituted for getting help from a qualified mental health professional. So thank you, Ola, and welcome. And I'm so glad that you have taken up the challenge. It's not even a challenge, but that you've agreed to come and have this conversation with me. I've been long wanting to have this conversation. And the first time I tried, nobody came forward. So I'm really excited that you've come forward and you're the first person.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. So thank you. As you know, we work with women who experience abuse. And I wanted to talk to men. I want to have a conversation with men about healthy relationships, because I feel like maybe there's something missing for the other men and they don't understand what that looks like. And maybe they didn't have a good foundation in healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes as women, we're losing hope. We're losing hope. Some women are losing hope that there are men out there that are healthy, that are wholesome, that understand boundaries, that respects boundaries, that can have healthy, loving relationships. Now, I know that there are men out there. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. But I've gone way ahead of myself, everyone. I want to introduce Ola. And thank you again for coming. Ola is a student and he's studying, listen, it's really exciting, forensic and criminal psychology. It's not really yummy. So I know he's going to do a lot of, make a big difference in the world when he's done with the path that he has chosen.
Yeah.
So Ola, what made you interested in this topic and decide to offer yourself to come and talk with me?
Well, when I first saw your post, I was interested in it because I'm mainly interested in human behavior and how we can better our behavior and also understanding why we behave the way we behave, but also with my personal experiences in life. Not too long ago, I also started therapy for myself because I understood those wrong patterns that I have, but also understand that a lot of men feel as if they don't have value and they appropriate that value into money. The only way that a man has value most times in society is only if he has money. And I feel like that is part of the problems on why men struggle to have, good relationships, because if you don't think you have value and the only way you possess value is money, and then you feel like the person you're going to encounter all the value for your money, then the relationship is not really a good relationship. It's not based on good foundations. So that's something that's really resonated with me and I wanted to talk about.
All right. Thank you so much. So you want to talk about why we behave the way we do.
Yeah.
And that lots of men don't understand that thing about value.
Yeah.
So why do you think men behave like that? Why do you think they control? Why do you think they manipulate? Why do you think they're men in relationships that don't understand that they're loved and can just allow themselves to be loved? Instead, they manipulate and control and end up abusing the women who love them.
I feel like everything stems from looking at their childhood and looking at someone's childhood. When you look at someone's behavioral patterns, always go back on what are the experiences they had growing up and what examples did they have growing up. Now, we can say, well, men abuse and men this, and where there's a significant or not a majority of men that do that. But then we also need to look at the dynamics within the relationship and how things are. Things are not as easy to say this is a bad guy and this is all things. And we ought to understand that why things happen the way they are. And perhaps I'm not 100% sure. I can't pinpoint the exact precise reason why someone may abuse someone. It could be because they feel like they never had control during their childhood from their parents or from mentors that they had. And now is the opportunity to have control over someone, although that person is genuinely loving them. That could be a reason. Or it could be a thing that they have mental health issues and they are narcissistic or schizophrenic, or they could have all sorts of issues. But I feel like what we want to do is understand the patterns behind it. And
yeah, and the patterns is really important to understand. And that's why I wanted to have the conversation, because maybe if a man hear about the patterns from you, it might spark something in them that they want to go explore, versus if they hear it from another woman, they might not listen as keenly. So you said something that's really interesting. You said maybe they've never been loved, maybe they've never had control, and just this is the only thing, their relationship, that they have control of. What would you say? Or you also mentioned childhood trauma, which I really absolutely agree with.
yeah,
Not that we use it as an excuse, but I believe those are really ripe ingredients for people to pain causes sometimes us first to act in certain ways.
yeah.
What would you say to a man that have experienced childhood trauma, whatever the trauma is, and he has not had help? Because I know it's really difficult for men to go and get support. What would you say to that man?
I feel like is understanding that everybody experiences trauma to some degree. Everybody have bad experiences, whether it's with their parents or not. And it's understanding that we should see as our parents not as perfect beings, but as people
Yeah,
that try their best, one.
yeah,
And two,
yeah.
it is your responsibility as an adult to unlearn bad patterns that you have learned during your childhood. So you have to go therapy, and also try and have healthy accountability groups. So example, my experiences, I've never really felt comfortable necessarily totally expressing how I felt or talking about my feelings with women. But then to some degree, I felt more comfortable with men because I felt like there was an environment that was better. But then perhaps it was because of the choice of type of men that I made
Yeah,
my friend. So
right.
be intentional with the type of people that you encounter and the type of people you choose to make your friend. There was an old saying that my parents always told me: don't allow your friends to choose you, you choose your friend.
You
You need to
choose.
be in,
Oh, that's a good one.
you need to be intentional in choosing people that have the same moral values, and you need to make sure that you have good set of moral values. And how do you discover that? Perhaps the example, I come from a Judeo-Christian background where I have faith, so that help me with my set of values, but you need to enforce them and you need to really be intentional with them. That can help.
That's so good, Ola, because what you're talking about is somebody who knows themselves and understand themselves. Because you're saying, you know, it's your responsibility to unlearn the things that you've learned. So it's not okay to say, well, this is what I've seen. You're saying when you've seen it, it's your responsibility to unlearn it. And you said have accountability. And I really believe in that. I really believe in accountability. And when we interview my husband, we're going to talk about that, because that has been so beneficial to him and to us. Have accountability, but you're saying be intentional, not just anybody, be intentional in finding people that have similar values to yourself to be accountable to. And you said, while some men might not be comfortable being in spaces with other women where they can share their feelings, so find other spaces where there are other safe men, I'm going to say, emotionally safe, where you can express yourself and you can be held accountable. But I think that takes, don't you think that takes a level of self-awareness? Like, I think for somebody to get there, they've had to do some work on themselves,
100%.
therapy, or
I feel like it is a mixture between therapy and I would say God has blessed me to some degree. Making me aware, but it's also, I believe there's wisdom in counsel. If you have people that hold you accountable and tell you the truth, whether you like it or not, you will actually see yourself in the mirror properly with your flaws and without your flaws. I feel like it's also important that men realize that when you're dating, you need to understand what you're dating. And obviously, we live in a society where people will tell you like all is important is money, all is important if you look this way, if you have this and you have that. And really and truly, at the end of the day, nothing matters. If we see the state of marriages nowadays, marriages are crumbling. And do you know why? Because a lot of times people enter marriages with the wrong set of values, enter marriages for the vibe, just because I like the person, I'm liking them sexually, but they're not actually getting to know them. I feel like it's important to actually take time and learn what are the cues of the person, what are the love languages of the person, how does this person get triggered by that, how can I work with this person. I feel like what we ought to do as people and as men is realize that when I enter a relationship, my duty as a man is to want to work with this person. I need to be intentional of wanting to work with this person. We know that goods are goods, but what happens when bad is bad? So
Yeah.
you need to learn how to, okay, we are having an argument. I need to sit down with you and actually talk. I want to be intentional in fixing it. Does that mean that that also implies that no pettiness, no talking anyhow, and giving each other time and space? If right now you feel like your anger is so much and you can't control your tongue, perhaps take a step back and say, hey, this is why I'm upset. This is what's affecting me. I don't feel like right now I can talk about it, and take your time and talk about it later on. But it needs to be addressed and you need to talk about it. And I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of times we go for, some men go for women that like fights, like anger. And it's not to blame women that, they like fight and like anger, but also us men, we need to be aware of what we go for. Because I've been scarred in my earlier relationships. My first relationship has been extremely traumatic. If I allowed that to affect me, I could have been an atrocious man. I could have been the stereotypical Nigerian Yoruba demon that goes around, does his own thing. And it's like, I just made the choice of not allowing that to affect me. I've been cheated on. I've been betrayed. My trust has been done. I've been done dirty. But it's like, you have to be aware that every time something bad happens to you, you have to be conscious and make yourself vulnerable. Like, people are afraid of making themselves vulnerable, but the only way to grow is to, each new encounter that you have with a partner, with a female partner, is you have to say, hey, I need to make myself vulnerable to allow this person to help me. One thing that I've experienced or saw in my parents' marriage, and I chose that this is what I want to do things. As a man that you're marrying a woman, I have to allow your wife to be your wife. And what does that mean? You need to give her the opportunity to do a role. And sometimes you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, even though at times she has disrespected you, at times she has talked down to you. If you have talked about it and you have resolved that in that issue, then you have to, again, make yourself vulnerable. The only way that you can improve is constantly put yourself in a place of vulnerability to allow the person to improve. We need to trust the fact that our partner wants it as much as we want it. And obviously, I'm not saying do it blindly. If they're not showing that they actually want to try, don't constantly hurt yourself, and talk to them, tell them, hey, you're hurting me, doing this and this and that. But we need to go out of our way of trying.
Yes. Thank you. What you mentioned faith earlier, and what role has faith played in you developing this level of self-awareness and understanding, and in the decisions that you've made moving forward, despite having those relationships where you got hurt?
I feel like I grew up in a Christian family, but wasn't a Christian. I then eventually started going to church again because God bless this woman that she introduced me to church. Well, I started going to church again, and I got baptized and started having faith. And one thing I understood is God forgives us and God gives us grace. Grace is given. That's it.
Yes.
And I said, I want to be forgiving people and giving grace to people. But one thing that God said, or one thing I'm understanding, it's not directly that I said, but one thing I'm understanding, that trust is not something we can just give anyhow and freely to people. If someone betrays your trust, be careful. Just don't give them your trust back again. Tell them, hey, I forgive you, but we need to go through things in order for me to really re-earn your trust. So I feel like I'm understanding more that I'm capable of forgiving people. That doesn't mean I have to trust them. I need to put boundaries in place to safeguard myself. I feel like in the past, I never really understood what boundaries necessarily were. And I feel like perhaps a lot of men don't understand what boundaries are. That's the boundaries why I think to just stop me from doing something. But a lot of times boundaries are even to protect yourself from
Absolutely.
that you want to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. Boundaries are to protect you. I love it. So you gain some, and your faith helped you to gain some really good insight into yourself, into relationships, how they work. And you're saying, I can forgive you, but I don't have to trust you.
Yeah.
Because it's something else. And you've not allowed those relationships to make you bitter. And so you go on hurting anyone else. You've taken responsibility for that hurt for yourself and did the work.
Yeah. And to say, I feel like But one thing that we need to understand as people is nobody's perfect.
No.
I'm not saying that, hey, I've done every single thing in my life perfectly. But one thing that you want to do is, like in your Christian walk, if you fail, if you make a mistake, learn from it and try to move forward and try not to repeat it.
Yeah.
I've never betrayed anyone. I never went out of my way to hurt someone. But sometimes, example, I haven't been the best communicator. Sometimes I took things so personally that I was like, you know what, I don't want to hear about this anymore. I'm gone. I don't want to have this anything to do that. And sometimes I can reflect on it and be like, perhaps it was unfair on the person. Perhaps I should have allowed them to respect it. But life goes on. You learn, you live and you learn and you improve from there. But one thing that we need to, I feel like, stop doing is expect men or women to be perfect, because even us in a Christian journey are not perfect.
We're
But
not.
what we aspire to do is learn and constantly improve and actually hold each other accountable. But I feel like holding each other accountable is, and I feel like men feel like when people say hold each other accountable, it's just saying, yeah, bad man, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to do that, you're disgusting this. But it's just saying that, hey, that's not a good behavior. You should behave better. This is how actually we should behave. That's holding someone accountable. If you have a friend, like our friends that I feel like sometimes they may not do something, and we tell each other, hey, that's what you said you were going to do. You're actually not doing it. You should do this instead. That's
Yes,
what's
I
holding
love
someone
it.
accountable. But
Yes, yes.
and I feel like within my Christian walk, one thing I understood is if I actually don't love you, if I'm actually not willing to die for you, perhaps I should close my mouth and mind my business. Because if you're not actually having the best interest of that person at heart, why are you talking to them and why are you trying to give them advice? Are you being pretentious? Are you trying to feel holier than thou? I feel like a lot of times if you want to really advise people, or if you really want people to improve, really need to care for people, really want to, there's that need that you can't really give a good advice if you don't really care about that person.
I so agree that you're saying invest emotionally in this person, invest in their lives, and that's how whatever advice you give will make a difference when you invest in their lives. It sounds like you are surrounded with people that did that for you.
I guess in my later years of life, yes. In my later years of life, yes. I feel like I've went through a lot of trauma. I've went through a lot of things that were not easy, whether it comes from racism, when it comes to being traumatized by both men and women. It's not easy, but I guess partially thanks to the upbringing of my parents, partially thanks to God, but and also to a certain period, I distanced myself from feelings, but it's not necessarily healthy. More recently, I'm reconnecting with my feelings, trying to acknowledge them more and work with them more. I feel like what's important is just think, and we need to think, because usually I say to myself, I struggle to help people that don't actually question their reality. If you don't question your reality, it's hard to move forward in life, because if you only think that what you're doing is correct and what you're doing is the right way, I'm sorry, boo boo, but the world is a wide place and wild, and there's different realities, different truths, and there's different ways of doing things. So I feel like the best way to carry yourself in life is always question reality, always have good accountability partners, and be intentional with things. Don't just don't think that your way is the best. Research, read, ask yourself, is this the best way? Is this the only way? How can I do and how can I help?
I hear that, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you're reconnecting with feelings, because that's so important. And I hope that there's somebody walking that journey with you as you do that reconnection, to be able to feel for yourself, so you can feel for other people. And I know you're going to do amazing work when you finish with the degree that you're doing. I know you're going to do amazing work, and men are going to need you. I think people are going to need you with the insight and understanding that you're gaining. So is there any last thing you want to talk about, that you want to say to men, to women, to people who are listening to? I have a lot of mothers who listen, and sometimes they have sons. Is there anything that you'd like to say around any one of the themes? You talk about accountability. unlearning. You talked about experience in childhood, and sometimes those experiences are things that we live in our families that we have to unlearn. Is there anything that you want to say to men that are listening, or to mothers with sons, about how to help them with that?
Yeah, I feel like with mothers, women, or men, I feel like I think it's important to understand, and this is just my opinion. It's not a fact. It's not someone that's highly researched. But I feel like the highest honor a woman could give a man is giving him a child, not because of anything, but I feel like women go through a serious breakdown of their body. Their body completely changes. Be very aware of you lay in bed with, and also each time you lay in bed with someone, there's a very high risk of making children. So be aware of who you lay in bed with. And also with men is, if speak up. If you want to have a relationship with children, do have it. And people shouldn't hold their feelings. People shouldn't prioritize their feelings so much in terms of, because I feel this way, I'm going to treat you this way. Try and work with one another. It's not easy, but sometimes you have to put yourself aside. I genuinely believe that once you become a parent, no disrespect to any parent, but you don't matter anymore. Like what is the most important is that child.
These children. Yeah.
Whatever that man has done to you, whatever that woman has done to you, for the good of that child, if he's capable of being a good human being, and if he's capable of taking care of that child, put it aside. Sometimes we hold on too much on our feelings. So I think it's good to acknowledge your feelings. It's good to work on them, but don't drown in them. Don't focus so much on them.
Like, don't drown in them.
Feelings are a good tool to help us navigate in life. But if we feel overwhelmed by them, if we just focus on them, allow them to rule us, it's going to be a tough journey.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Their feelings are guides, right? We don't have to be afraid of them, but we need to be in control of them.
Exactly.
As opposed to them telling us what to do, we need to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So I think the message is get help, understand yourself, get accountability that is aligned with your values. Then you're gonna have to know your values to get the kind of accountability that aligns with your values. Yeah. And I think that if I'm to summarize that, what I'm hearing is get to know yourself too, because it's when you get to know and understand yourself that you can do these things. And as we continue this series on just understanding men, helping us on, or men talking to other men, really, just providing the space for men to talk to other men. I really wish that you listen to what Ola is saying, and walk your journey of healing if you need to. Learn to understand yourself, learn to understand your feelings, learn to understand what's going on for you, learn to understand how your life has impacted you. Because I think, as I was saying this morning to somebody, I think sometimes society sell men short, and you have sometimes a massive load to carry. And I don't think men trust sometimes all the spaces that maybe they don't have a lot of spaces where they can go talk about what that load feels like for them. Like, boy, this is hard. And as you and I wonder if Black men even have even less spaces to go talk about how heavy the load is, so that they don't go home and act out and carry on in their homes and hurt the people that love them.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like I'm lucky because I feel like in my past, after the age of 18, I feel like I've been able to have a lot of people that were around me that I could talk to. But I know that it's not the same for a lot of people.
No.
At the same time, is a lot of times because this is dramatized a lot in terms of, I don't know how to relate to death. Me and my best friend don't know how to relate to death. We just joke about it. And when someone passes away near to us, we don't really acknowledge it. We just dramatize it. When there's huge trauma, we just dramatize it. And so we live in a society where both men and women contribute to the non-acknowledging the feelings of men.
Yes.
And so you can see, if you look at many cases, high-level cases online, of men breaking down on the internet, crying out loud. But what happens? They become memes. They become the mock or the situation.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like a lot of times some men don't feel safe, but also at the same time is to say that this is something I experienced, and I know a lot of men resonate with that. To some degree, some women can weaponize men's feelings against them, and that's the danger. I feel like a man might not trust the woman because it's like, well, I'm opening up to you. You told me to open up, be vulnerable,
You
open up,
can't manage it.
and now, you're using it against me, and it's like you're not supposed to do that. But I wouldn't do that to you. I cherish you, so but obviously it's complicated. There's many reasons why people do what they do, and it's never as straightforward, because we can stay here forever and play the blame game. It's men's fault, it's women's fault. Women do this, men do this. What we ought to do is really unlearn bad behaviors and treat
That's
people
it.
with fairness and kindness. That's what we have to do. And until we don't do that, we're not really gonna solve anything.
Yeah, and I thank you for that, because we're always learning and we're always growing, and we're learning how to be better people. They learn not, men are learning how to be better people, and that's why I wanted the conversation to happen. We'll continue to have the conversation, because you're right. We just need to learn and understand ourselves and understand myself in relation to somebody else, so that we can have healthy, wholesome relationships, because I know it's possible. It takes work, but it's worth the work. It's worth the work to be able to do that. Thank you so much, Ola, for giving your time. Thank you for just coming and talking to us, and we wish you all the best in your studies. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Please like and subscribe and share this video with anybody who you think might benefit, and join us again, because I think next week we're going to have another conversation with another male about healthy relationships. Thank you, Ola.